Welcome to The Game. This is the show where we go play by play analyzing the game of politics. Today on The Game, the shutdown continues. Both parties are digging into their position. Also, we're going to be looking at a new poll from CNN where 44% of Latinos say they prefer Republicans to be in power after the 2026 election. What does this mean for Democrats and Republicans? Also, Pete Hegseth. He had his Liberation Day at a military meeting where it's drawing a lot of sharp reactions, both from people who support the stance of the Department of War, but also critics. And joining me today to break down these topics, we have Soledad Cedro. Soledad is the managing director at Tactic Global, a political strategy firm. She's also the former communications director for Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Soledad, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Wadi. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we also have Marco Frietti, is a Democrat strategist and analyst. He is the former director of the Hispanic media for the DNC. Marco, it's a pleasure to have you.
Wadi, happy to be back with you.
All right. Well, let's get started. Look, I actually want to read a little bit of a timeline reported by Political Playbook this morning. So we are currently on the second day of a partial government shutdown. Playbook is reporting that tomorrow, Friday, Republicans will be voting on another CR, which means Democrats, Republicans and Democrats will have to take a vote. This isn't just now just their position through words and through rhetoric. It is another voting opportunity. House Republicans aren't in session till next week. And then next Friday is a key date because next Friday would be the first day that government employees do not receive a check. Many of them are currently furloughed. It's a partial shutdown, so not all departments and not all government employees are not working, but many are them furloughed. And even the ones who are working, next Friday would be the first date that they wouldn't receive a check. I think that would add pressure to the situation. But I want to get started with Marco. When you look at this shutdown, it's no secret that both sides are pointing to their contrincantes, to their opposition. Democrats are standing firm on that this is their opportunity, which what they say is fighting for healthcare, specifically the Obamacare subsidies. But there are a lot of critics who say that this is not the moment for that fight, that they can pass a clean CR and that they can have this negotiation and this debate down the line. There's also reports that Schumer is feeling a lot of pressure because earlier this year they passed a CR extending funding, and many on the left were saying that he didn't fight. How do you view what Democrats are doing right now in this standoff?
Oh, first, in a shutdown, to be honest, it's everybody loses. It's not just one party, because as we've seen poll after poll, Americans do not feel that government is being efficient, can get things done, and this just answers their deepest issues: is that government cannot get things done. Sorry for the word, but that's the truth. That's what they say. So everybody loses, but obviously, right now, who controls the White House? Who controls the House? Who controls the Senate? Are the Republicans. They just had to sit down with those Democratic senators to get them to help out passing that continuing resolution. And here, I think we have to make it clear that Democrats are not asking for anything crazy. Democrats are not asking the government to fund billions of dollars to refurbish a plane that the president is getting from Qatar. They're not asking billions of dollars to help out the economy, to prop up the economy of Trump allies in Argentina. They're not asking for anything that is not beneficial to the American people. They're asking just to extend these subsidies that are key for millions of Americans that depend on Obamacare to get health insurance. Again, this is not a big ask. This at the end is also a benefit for a lot of the Republican electorate, the working class people that voted for President Trump in the past election. They're the ones that use a lot of this Obamacare. I want to highlight where you guys are in Miami. Miami's and Doral, the two biggest cities in the country with Obamacare recipients. If these subsidies are not extended, the Hispanic community in South Florida are going to be the biggest victims of this. And why this is important is because right now we're not doing that great, despite from the rhetoric in the White House. We have an economy that's shedding jobs. We just saw yesterday, ADP reported that in the month of September, the private sector lost 34,000 jobs. In August, we also saw a decrease, and we see the numbers going down. We're also seeing prices not going down as promised during the election. They're actually going up thanks to tariffs and not solving the issues that we had in the last couple of years. And there's also uncertainty at the global level, causing people to lose hope on their financial well-being going forward. So I think Democrats standing their ground, asking for Republicans for something that's really common sense, is let's keep helping the working class keep their health insurance prices controlled so they can still go to a doctor, they can still keep their parents, their kids healthy. That's not a big ask
Yeah. So
compared to other things that they're doing, which is, again, we're sending money to Argentina, but we cannot help our people here keep health insurance. That is, and it's funny because that was the language the Republicans were using in the election. So right now, that's the message that people are seeing. So I think that ask is not that big, and Democrats, and there's discussion of should they do it now, should they done it earlier. This is probably the only moment up until the midterms where Democrats will have leverage, and it's not leverage to satisfy the quibs of the president, like again financing their refurbished plane, helping out Argentina. It's helping the working people. So I think Democrats are doing the right thing. Again, we should see a solution pretty fast because at the end of the day, why now? Why not later? As Republicans say, is because the last day for health insurance to set up their prices for next year is November 1st. They want to do a continuing resolution up until the end of November. So this is the moment to actually get this done and help the American people. So I think this is the moment to do it.
Soledad, on the Republican side, I want to get your analysis because to what we just heard, Marcos referred to. Republicans are saying that they are willing to have this discussion, right? They're saying let's negotiate, let's talk, but why sort of hold the government hostage? Let's pass the clean CR. Many Republicans are also saying that many of these Obamacare subsidies were temporary. They were done during the pandemic era. Let's say Republicans might be right on their principle, but the reality is that shutdown also is a little bit of a PR game, and typically, historically, the party in power receives a little bit slightly more of the blame because they tend to be in power. Obviously, we know the nuances that you need in the Senate, at least the 60 votes. How do you see the Republican position here? Or do they have somewhat of an advantage in the sense that many people are starting to talk about the nuances? They're realizing that Democrats are going to have to vote in favor of something if they do want to reopen the government. I mean, how do you see the Republican point of view in this space?
Well, how to see Republican or Democrat? My point of view as an American is that I'm not a big fan when people don't do their job. So,
and that's a key point. Both of you
yes.
guys made. Let's just reemphasize that because the reason the government's shutting down is not that the money isn't there. The money is in the Treasury, but Congress has an appropriations process where they need to say where the funds go.
And I understand the November 1st deadline, but they've known this for months, and they waited until the very last moment to do this PR stunt, which is what it is. It's a PR stunt. They are not doing their job, and they are proving what most Americans think, and I agree with Marco, he just said that, which is that our government is not efficient enough. And I'm not a big fan of that. That being said, a few things that I would like to clarify. One, yes, those the things that are being discussed right now, those were temporary. And at some point, I think that we need to understand that, and politicians need to understand that when temporary things are approved, that means that at some point they're going to end. I think that we need to have a serious discussion about Obamacare and about our health system. And I don't know why Democrats and Republicans have not done their job and fixed this huge issue. We spend more money than any other nation in the world in our healthcare system, and still is extremely deficient. There are many things to take into consideration here. Some people are saying that this benefits, it's not only for the working class, but also for people who are not even like legal residents of the United States. And that's a discussion worth having. Do we have to wait until the very last moment to have this discussion and shut down our government? I don't think that's the way to do things. And unfortunately, that's the way time and time our politicians have chosen to do things. And at some point, we need to stop this. We cannot keep shutting our government because they're incapable of reaching an agreement. They're incapable of solving issues that we've been carrying for decades, like the problems with our healthcare system, and they are not solving it. That being said, I would like, and I know this is not the point of the discussion, and I cannot even like discuss too much this because of my job aside from what I'm doing here. But I would encourage everybody to read what's going on with Argentina. It's a swap. Aside from the headlines, if you read a little more than a headline or an Instagram reel, you would understand that the way this works, it's not a bailout to Argentina. This is actually some help that the U.S. is going to give Argentina because strategically the U.S. feels that they have to do this. But it's not that we're using the taxpayers' dollars to bail out Argentina. We're using the taxpayers' dollars to help Argentina and to make that money back. So I would encourage everybody to read exactly what it is and go beyond this headline.
Yeah, we'll have to dig into that topic down the line. We had Frank Alley here about 2 days ago, and he spoke a little bit. We did a segment on the influence of China in South America, and we kind of went into the details of how the U.S. used to have a larger influence and how China little by little has been moving in.
Plus, we're not talking about the same budget here. So it's literally a lie to say that we are using the money to bail out Argentina, money that we are not using for our healthcare system. It's literally a lie.
Yeah, I think it's a topic that we'll be able to do a full segment on. Marco, as you look at the dynamics here, I think there's a little bit of agreement here, right? I think the agreement has been that government hasn't been doing their job, Congress hasn't been doing their job, and this isn't the first time. I think we both have a laundry list where we can maybe point to both sides together and point where both parties haven't fulfilled what their duty is. But there's also a little bit of agreement that there is a little bit of PR stunts on both sides. I think both sides try to use this as a way to maybe either make political points or make sure that their other side might be losing some of them. I mean, Donald Trump hasn't shied away from pointing at Democrats, at Schumer, at House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and he's characterized what he believes is a party with lack of leadership. Do you think in these moments during the shutdown, is Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader, but also Senate Minority Leader Schumer, from a Democrat point of view, have they stepped up their game? The Wall Street Journal had an article saying that, again, a lot of the pressure is coming in because Schumer in the past hasn't stood up. And I think Democrats are at this place where they're trying to get their footing. Kamala Harris had a book tour talking about sort of how the party didn't support her fully in those last 107 days or 170 days. I'm forgetting which of the two. But, I mean, how do you view it? Is this the moment where Democrats have to sort of step up? Is this, are they, yes, they're focused on the Obamacare subsidies, but is this also just a standing up to the president and his policies?
Oh, first, the key point is the book on Kamala Harris. I think it's at this point not beneficial to start criticizing the party, a party that mobilized a record campaign in 107 days, as her book is titled, with all the support. So those criticisms are not helpful in this moment when you had a whole party just support you in a complicated situation. And the moment, I think the leaders, Schumer, Jeffries, they're responding to what the party want, and I think what the country also wants, which is an opposition party that stands up to the president and any extension or any overreach that he's doing and he's being allowed to by a Republican Party. Because at the end of the day, is who controls everything right now in Washington? The White House is Republican, Congress is Republican. Obviously, congressional Republicans, Senate Republicans are not being a check on the president. So Democrats have to do whatever they can do with the limited power they have. Democrats are in the minority in these situations where Republicans need 7, 5, whatever amount of votes they need in the Senate from Democrats is the moment that they need to stand up. And that's why I think Schumer and Jeffries are doing the right thing. This is the moment to show the country that there is an opposition party and they are fighting for the people. Again, healthcare is a main thing right now for everybody. It's a pocketbook issue and everybody cares about it. So I think Democrats are doing the right thing here, is taking those limited opportunities that the party has in this situation where there is no power afforded to the Democrats at any federal level to take a stand and fight for the people. It's the
Marco,
moment to do it. I mean, yeah.
If I could ask you on that point, and how far do you think they'd be willing to go? I think there's a little bit of a perspective that possibly the administration and Republicans might have a little bit of the upper hand. This is a partial shutdown because two things are very important. One, Republicans were able to fund a lot of the sort of services that they believe through the one big beautiful bill. So we all know that immigration is a top priority for this administration. For Republicans, they were able to fund a lot of the border security, a lot of the ICE agents. Also, through my understanding is that the departments get to decide who is an essential worker and sort of what is considered an essential task. So many of the departments are run by the appointees of President Donald Trump. So it seems like Republicans might have a little bit of upper hand. Do you think Democrats will sort of go long term? Is there a record maybe that's going to be built? I think the record might be 39 days. Or do you think when people start, the checks don't start coming in, the president possibly has also said that they may not just create furloughs, but they'll fire people. Do you think Democrats are ready to stand even beyond a lot of those points?
I think one of the major fears of why Schumer and Jeffries didn't do this back in March was that last point you made, which was the fear that they were going to fire federal workers like they did with the Dodge operation. And now, 6 months in, we've seen how through the judicial process there have been people have gone back to their jobs after 6, 7 months of being fired because the president did not have the power to do that. So I think the leaders were reinforced on the ability of the judicial system to protect jobs and limit the president's illegal actions like these, which essentially ended up being the president sending thousands of federal workers on paid vacation for 6 months. Talk about efficiency. They're wasting money. They just pay people not to work. So I think that recomforts the leaders to take the stand now. I think they could go for long because at the end of the day, people that are not tuned into the political theater that we see every day and we all pay attention to it is that who is in control of DC? Is the president? It's the Republican Party. And we see the polls. We saw how the Washington Post posted today. The majority of people believe that the people responsible for the shutdown are going to be the Republicans. So I think Democrats are shielded in a way of this. They obviously will have some risk, but I think there's also an issue of proximity to certain elections that will cause more problems to the Republicans. We have in Virginia a general election in November where we're going to elect governor. We're going to have hundreds of positions being elected throughout Virginia. Guess what? Northern Virginia is an area where thousands of federal workers live, people that will not be paid. So that is a risk for Republicans right now. Losing, they have a Republican governor now. The Democrat candidate is pretty strong, so they have a risk electorally of going long with this shutdown if they don't see to what Democrats want. With at the end of the day, is not. I don't think it's a big ask in the eye of the public. It is not, again, not asking money to pay for a ballroom in the White House. It's not money to refurbish a Qatari plane. It is helping working class people pay for healthcare. So I think when those key points of the issue we're going through stay in the head of the people, the federal workers in Northern Virginia, that I think carries more risk for the Republicans. So I think Democrats believe they can go for long. Hopefully not a month like we had last shutdown when Trump shut down the government because he wanted to pay for his wall. But at the end of the day, this is a stand that Democrats have to make to not only comfort and show leadership to their party, but to the country that there's another party willing to stand up to a president and a Republican Party that is overreaching in a lot of things across the country.
So I have a little bit of a two-part question for you. One, do you see any risk on the Republican side on their stance? Do you see anywhere where this could possibly backfire? 2026, it's almost like when you're in power, you are a little bit on the defense. And what I mean by that is on the Senate next year for 2026, the map is a lot of current Republicans are up for re-election in very purple states, which means they're going to have to defend a record. They're going to have to defend, everything that they voted on, including, they're going to have a conversation around this shutdown. Do you think there are any risk if this goes long term? If it goes short term, I think both parties kind of washed their hands in the sense that they both sort of stood up what they believe in. But one is, do you see any risk? And then two, I wanted to get your opinion on, do you believe that the president is using this conversation of possibly firing individuals as a tactic of trying to pressure Democrats, or do you think this is a real opportunity where they will look at where they deem some folks unnecessary and actually reduce the size of the workforce?
Okay, regarding the risk, I agree with Marco that there's an imminent risk in a state like Virginia. This is something that can easily happen if there are people losing their jobs especially in Northern Virginia, where a lot of federal workers live, because of obviously the proximity with DC. This can have an impact in the race for governor in that state. That being said, I think that 2026 is really far away. I don't think this is going to be such a long-term issue. As we've mentioned already, there's a partial shutdown, so I don't think people are going to remember this that much. I completely convinced that this is a PR stunt designed by Democrats who, I agree, they are not as powerless as they are trying to point out right now in DC, because remember, yes, there's a majority of Republicans in Congress, but that majority, it's a minimum majority. So they still need it's not that the whole power is on the Republican side. And I think that people are not silly, and people understand that there's a lot of responsibility on both sides here. When it comes to firing employees, layouts, I don't think this is going to be the case. I don't think that we're going to reach that far in this opportunity. But that being said, I think that President Trump is a doer. So he wouldn't hesitate if it comes to the point of doing that. He wants to make the government more efficient. He's been trying. It's been only a few months that he's been in power, and he's done a lot in order to make government more efficient. And I think that if we reach to that point, he will do whatever has to be done. Is this the opportunity? Is this the context in which I'm expecting to see this happening? Personally, I don't think that this is the context. I think that this is something that eventually it's going to get solved in the very short term. But when time comes, I think that President Trump will do whatever it is in his power to have less spending on bureaucracy and more money towards the issue that really affects everyday life for Americans.
Yeah, I think the agreement here is that Americans across the country, their desire is to not see a government shutdown, their desire is to not see two parties fighting, but they would like to see, in an ideal world, a place where there could be negotiations and conversations. A challenge for the public and those listening in, if you, to the point, I think, of being tired of sometimes what we call hypocrisy, is my challenge is during these times is write down what your party is saying, write down what the other party is saying, keep that piece of paper, and then when the tables have flipped and your party is in power and the other one is not, look at the rhetoric. And something that I think most people would notice is that you could almost switch the lines, where many times the people in power, the way they blame the other team, it all seems very similar to the way that the other party was talking when they had in power. So I think in politics, there's a little bit of shifting of rhetoric when you're in power or when you're in the minority. So that'll just be my challenge to the audience there. But I do want to turn to our next topic, and it's a poll coming from CNN where they asked a wide range of questions, everything from the direction of the country to the strength of the American dream. But also they looked at 2026 and they asked voters who they believed should be in power after the 2026 election. Very interesting enough, 44% of Latinos said that they would prefer the GOP to be in power. Now, easily you can say, well, that means that 56% believe that Democrats should be in power, which is a majority of Latinos. Yes, but historically, that number for Democrats has been a lot higher, and that 44% was a lot lower for Republicans. I think there's a lot we can talk about here, because when it comes to the Latino vote, we've noticed that there are shifts happening. Many Latinos still independent, not necessarily baked for one party or the other. So I want to continue with you. When you hear this number of 44%, you're spot on. We're very far away. We're more than a year away from 2026. But I think all of us who kind of work in politics and sort of follow it day by day, we have a fascination to consistently be looking at the pulse, where we are at this moment in time. So in the context of the year 2025, and many Hispanics have seen what this administration, what House Republicans have done throughout this year, that support of 44% seems to be there. Do you see this as a positive sign? Do you think this is something that Republicans sort of can do a victory lap in, or do you still caution them in this space when it comes to Latino voters?
Well, I would be extremely cautious about doing any sort of victory lap at any point. I think that things can shift easily in politics. That being said, I think that this 44% is consistent with a trend that we've been seeing for years, which is that something that you and I, we have discussed this a million times. Historically, yes, Latinos tend to vote for the Democratic Party. That being said, it's true as well that Democrats have taken Latinos for granted, do not really understand the Latino community. It's not that, as we know, it's not a monolithic community. Not everybody wants the same. Not everybody has the same needs. They just simply took them for granted. Nobody has been really listening to Latinos, talking to Latinos, and I think that that's something extremely smart that President Trump and his team has been doing, not just this second time around, but the first time around. The fact that they at least started listening to Latinos and realize that what's important for them. I think that in theory, it's always been really hard for me to understand why Latinos vote for Democrats in general in the country. Why? Because I think that an over generalizing, right? Latinos are a very family-oriented community, mostly Christian, which means that the core values tend to align way more with the core values of the Republican Party. Latinos are the number one community in the nation, owners of small businesses. Owners of small businesses, by default, we can assume that generally will tend to want lower taxes, smaller government.
Yeah, less regulation.
Which is part of the basic principles of the Republican Party. On top of that, historically, the U.S., Democrats and Republicans have been neglecting politics in Latin America. Particularly, I think that this is both parties to blame, but particularly during the last few Democratic administrations, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and so on. Their misunderstanding of politics in Latin America have been beyond my comprehension. And I think that President Trump have done a much better job understanding what's going on in the region, understanding what's the role that the U.S. should play in the region, playing a harder role with a regime like the one that Nicolas Maduro has in Venezuela, doing something like the swap, for example, right now with Argentina, that geopolitically has an enormous impact for the region. So I think that Latinos have been noticing this. I think that that's why we've seen that there's a trend of Latinos shifting into the Republican Party. Mostly, I think it's important foreign politics, but mostly I think it has to do with economic reasons. Like, in the end, people want to be able to afford their lifestyle and not be so worried about the economy. And I think it has to do with the core values of the community. Yes, I think it's a positive trend for Republicans. Can Republicans relax and feel that this is a done deal? Absolutely not. This is work in progress.
I agree with a lot of what you said there. I want to ask you, Soledad, do these topics that you've mentioned right now, so in your opinion, it seems that they outweigh the immigration issue? Because I think that's where I think some folks are sort of having a conversation, right? Immigration, there's been a focus more on border and deportation, and specifically on deportation. I think many polls show that Latinos do agree with border security, and they agree very much with violent criminals being deported. But we're seeing these stories of possible of people detained who don't necessarily have criminal records, that they're at their appointment with the judge. So do these topics, do you think they outweigh them? Because when we talk about voters, also one thing about the Hispanic community is very, very diverse, right? So we do have individuals who are undocumented, many of them Latinos. We do have individuals who are legal residents who are voter, but they're here legally. Folks on visas here working in ag, in high tech, etc. And then you have citizens, U.S. citizens, Latinos who are the voter ones. So when we think of the voter population, it seems that the issues you just mentioned does outweigh immigration. Do you see it that way?
I don't think it outweighs immigration. I think that not necessarily immigration is something that the Latino community views as a failure coming from Republicans. I think that yes, a lot of us are immigrants, yes, or we have family members who are immigrants. But I think that a lot of Latinos want to see order in our immigration system. I think that we understand firsthand, most of us, how broken the system has been, how impossible it was to do things the legal way, the right way, and how much for the last 4 years we've seen an administration that basically opened our border, told without any sort of control, without allowing anybody, good people who are coming here to work hard, and a lot of people who didn't have like good values in their hearts coming to, and we are scared about that. When you're part of a community, you live in the US, and you know that there are gang members getting into your country, you will not support that. And I think that that's what's going on with the Latino community. We are here because we appreciate that in the United States, there are laws and people respect the laws. If that changes, one of the main reasons why a lot of Latinos come to this country will be completely broken, you know? So I don't think that that Latinos are supporting Republicans in spite of immigration. I think that Latinos are supporting Republicans first, because of the economy. Second, probably because of the core values that have to do with family and Christian values. But also because they are trying to put in order a completely broken immigration system.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth there. Two inflection points that I think, there are several, but two that I want to point to is I do think after the administration of Obama, many Hispanics, I think, lost that sort of loyalty on the topic of immigration to Democrats. They saw that a lot of promises weren't necessarily kept when Democrats had majorities. And I think they saw that, and I think it leveled the playing field just a little bit for Republicans. And then I think that when Joe Biden, under his administration, the record number of people coming in and the amount of Hispanic media that covered that, also they saw what you were pointing to, a lack of order. I think it leveled the playing field for Republicans.
And one more thing that I would like to tell you, I think that the fact that a big chunk of not everybody, but a big chunk of the Latino community is close to what's going on with immigration. It could be firsthand or it could be through friends and family, allows them to analyze this from a real life perspective and not just a headlines perspective. I think that sometimes it's harder for maybe, and I'm generalizing here, but let's say a white American person who knows nobody, who's been through the immigration process and knows nothing about how it works in real life. I think someone like that could be way more permeable to headlines than a Latino who knows that, yes, headlines media can be telling me that now they are deporting people like crazy without due process. But we know, because we lived through that under a Democratic administration, under Barack Obama specifically, they were deporting even more people without due diligence as well. So nobody can come and tell me that this is a problem that we are going. And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm saying that we know that this is something that happened under Obama, and this is something that might be happening under the Trump administration. So it's hard for a Latino to be so easily convinced that this is a problem that it's only happening now, because many of us have lived this firsthand, or at least know about this through someone very close to us.
Yeah, Marco, I want to bring you into the conversation. I'm sure there's a lot that perspective that you would want to bring in to what was said, and I do want to give you time, but I also want to sort of just start the conversation with you on. I mean, your party still has that 56%, right? So there are still many Latinos, the majority of them, who do see that Democrats, or they desire Democrats to be in power for after the 2026 election. But again, that number used to be a lot higher. When you view these numbers, again, just a glimpse of the pulse in time, what is your perspective to what your party needs to do? Where do you think there needs to be shifts? Where do you think there are opportunities? And we just talked a little bit about immigration. It is a conversation within the Latino community. In your opinion, how should Democrats be inserting themselves into that conversation?
Oh, I think the situation with the Hispanic vote has changed for diverse reasons. It's not one party doing something right and that's it. It's first, I think, is the change in the Hispanic community. Again, we're not a monolith. There's so many different communities throughout the country that have different beliefs, different origin stories. And start from the beginning. Originally, the Latino community was almost completely Mexican American and Central American. And they have their socioeconomic reasons to be here, some just because they grew up here and the country grew onto them in the case of the Southwest, but they mostly come for economic reasons. But in the last, I'd say 2-3 decades, you have a growing number of Colombians, Venezuelans, Argentinians, for diverse reasons, some political. So I think that has changed also the basis of how you talk to them on the issues. Again, I think the party and one of the mistake was relating immigration only to the Hispanic vote when we have so many different other reasons to vote and to pick our leaders. So focusing on that, I think, was a major mistake. Another mistake was changing the message from what Obama was saying 10 years ago to what we saw from the party in the last couple of years, which was Obama was, we want people to come the right way, but if you're not here the right way, you're being deported. That's why Republicans call Obama the deporter in chief. He held record numbers of deportation for people that did not have a reason to be here. And going back to the current situation, even of all the rhetoric you see from Trump, he's still not even matching or maybe even getting close to what even Biden was doing. So I think the major difference here was the language you're seeing from each government. Trump is being rough, putting out those social media videos to make it seem like he's doing a lot compared to deportation, but at the end of the day, he's still not maybe matching Biden what he did in terms of deportation. Just we didn't see that from the Biden government showcasing how you deport people changed back to the country. So I think the message is Democrats have to go back and emphasizing that we want people to come the right way. We want to fix the immigration system because it is a problem and that needs a fix. And we have to highlight that the last time we were close to fixing it was during the Obama administration, but the Republican Senate did not approve it. But we have made major progress on that, but it didn't happen because of a Republican Senate. So I think on the immigration issue is we have to, again, emphasize both sides. We want people to come the right way to benefit, but also contribute to this country. But if you don't have a reason to be here, if you're here illegally, you have to face the law and you will be deported. I think that has to be emphasized again by the Democratic Party. I do also think we have to recognize that the Republican Party has made a lot of progress within the community. Why? They talk about the issues that matter to the Hispanics when at the moment the Democratic Party was not talking about those issues. There was a lot of economic progress during the Biden years, but there was a more emphasis on social issues that Hispanics don't care about, or they find a bit distant to what their beliefs are. Any of those things can happen. So I think Republicans talked about the economy, pocketbook issues. That's what got them the White House. That's what got them Congress. But at the same time, that is the risk they're playing at come the midterms, because if the economy continues the path that we're seeing, and you talked about small business, the biggest sector of the economy that's losing now, it's the small business sector. I mentioned the ADP report losing jobs. Small businesses, 0 to 50 employees, are the ones losing jobs, not the major corporations. So again, Hispanics are going to be the ones paying for this economic policy, this tariff policy that's causing all these issues. So what benefited the Republicans in 2024 can be the loss in 2026, because at the end of the day, Hispanics care about first thing, putting food on the table, putting a roof over their families' heads,
Mhm.
and being safe. So if you don't have those first two things, and I can talk about safety later, but that will cause the Hispanic vote to change sides or go majority a bit more to the Democratic Party, given the situation. And again, this is objective. This is not an opinion. The economy is not doing
Yeah.
well. So if the economy keeps going the way we are seeing it, the Hispanic vote would probably shift, because I think both parties are making a mistake if they think they can win over the Hispanic vote. Hispanics are mostly independent, and they go for what will benefit the most. Who they talk, the party that talks about the issues they care about. Again, major thing is the economy. So if Trump fails in this economic policy, which is probably what's going to happen from now to the midterms, Hispanics will turn on him, and we might see a regression of that gain that Republicans have made since the election. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to ask you I think we look at elections and we look at just the future of the party. There's a lot of leadership is a very important part. I want to
Mhm.
ask you, there's in that battle of sort of the direction of the Democrat Party. I think there's two very distinct models. You have sort of like Senator Ruben Gallego out of Arizona, who's been going to Iowa to host town halls, to talk to folks over there. Some people who thinks he might run for president. He hasn't said that. He's just said he's talking to voters across the country.
Mhm.
Obviously, the first Hispanic senator from Arizona. But then you have the model of Mondami in New York. All signs point that he's going to win the mayor's race. When you analyze this sort of battle of the soul for Democrats, do you see which direction should they go? Is it a little bit of the Mondami model, or is it a little bit more of sort of that Senator Ruben Gallego model?
And I think so. I was mentioning it before. Is the influence I think of Latin America and the vote. I want to mention that too. Is like I don't think we as South Floridians we tend to give more importance than what it actually means to things in Latin America. The average voter does not care about foreign policy, but I think it's important for our politicians to understand why people are here, so we don't replicate those models and lose that vote or send those people to the other side. Why I mean that? Because Mandami, in one case, he brands himself as a socialist. He has his right to do it. It is a free country. But a lot of people in this country are here because of failed socialist policy. So I think, my opinion. I don't think this is the way to go for the Democratic Party. I think people send a clear message in 2024. They want a moderate, uh, common sense party that just works towards economic freedom, economic progress, less on the social issues, and nothing from Mandami and that sector of the party are on those issues. I think Mandami's policies are failure before starting. You have rent control that's proven to not work. Free buses that does not work. That's just inefficient use of resources. I think the motto of Ruben Gallego, Ram Emanuel, I think you can add to that Governor of California, Newsom, common sense, pocketbook issues, policies that will help, because at the end of the day, people want solutions to the problems that they have at the moment, which is the economy. Uh, and you see Mandani also involved in social issues. You see him talk about the conflict in the Middle East. And that also, I think, fractures the vote, dispels some of the borders. And the party, I think, really has to think what model they want. But if you were up to me, I think common sense policy, the economy, focus on the
Yeah.
economy, will get them the vote. I think at the end that will prevail. I don't think we need to over sample New York or the district where AOC is. They're very unique places, the same way as probably Mobile, Alabama is very unique, or any rural area of the country is very unique and very Trump. New York is very specific. I think we're overemphasizing Mandani, but we're not paying attention to, for example, the Democratic candidate in Virginia, the Democratic candidate in New Jersey for governor, which are foreign policy and security background professionals, former Congress people with a moderate agenda that caters to what the voters want today, which is the economy. So this fight is going to go on. I don't think we're going to see an actual definition of the way the party will go after the midterms, because right now everything's focused on Congress. So something might work again in the Bronx and something
Hmm.
might work in Hialeah. And they might be both Democrats. And so the fight will be, I think, the primary. So,
Yeah.
but again, the party has to go common sense, because that's the sign that the voter gave us in
Yeah,
2024.
that's what folks and voters are going to be looking at. I think just the conversation on the Latino vote in general, also the future of the Democrat Party, is a conversation that we're going to continue to cover here. As we come to a close, I do want to get your reactions just on our last topic before we come to an end. And it's Pete Hegseth, the overseeing the Department now of War, and on this military reset, this speech that he gave announcing new rules. For many, they saw them as unexpected. Others, they were rules and changes that they did see coming. Mark, I'm going to continue with you, just your perspective. What's your readout? Some people say, or the way the Secretary Hegseth framed these, is that this is a way to strengthen military to get rid of what he called woke and sort of DI policies. What's your reaction to his speech just a few days ago?
Oh, well, the event per se, I think is just incoherent of the rhetoric of efficiency that this government wants to showcase, which is, how do you drag every general and admiral of the U.S. Armed Forces back into D.C. to give them a pep talk? I think that's just a waste of resources, but from a government that says they're being efficient. So I think that first just starts the whole situation in a bad way. I think it's a distraction as well, because they want to say that the military, in some sense, is not strong because of whatever policies. This is not true. This is not true. I think this, at the end of the day, is an insult to the armed force. I think it's an insult that a Fox News host is giving this speech to war experienced generals and admirals. I think it's a lack of respect. Um, at the same time, you don't see the actual um, commitment from this government to actually strengthen the military. They give a good speech about woke and everything, but where's the money? We're supposed to be investing in our military, but we haven't seen a growth in the investment of the military. Uh, we see these speeches on the side. We also saw the president give and let's be honest, a weird speech, campaign speech to our generals and our admirals. And I think one of the biggest warning signs, apart from the obvious campaign speech, was when the president was saying, we're going to fight the enemy within. In a sense, you see this rhetoric from the Secretary of Defense, from the president, of there's an enemy within, like, in a sense, saying that part of the country is the enemy. First thing is, our military cannot be used in the country, within our borders. The military is to defend the country. So it should be alarming to anyone, specifically the Hispanic community, that has seen in their origin countries autocratic leaders use the military to suppress opposition. For example, Venezuela, the clearest case. Cuba, you can add it. Using this language that is very similar, saying that there's an enemy within, when that is not true. We're all Americans, and nobody here is the enemy of the military or the president. So I think that should be worrying for all of us,
Yeah.
worrying the inefficiency of the whole event. And at the end of the day, it's like, if you really want to strengthen our military, don't talk. Take action. Invest in them. We need investment. That hasn't happened in this government. They have kept it very low compared to the needs that the Secretary of Defense, sorry, the Ministry of Defense has communicated to the government. So where's the action? This is all talk, in my opinion.
Soledad, I want to go to you. I'm curious who you believe is the audience here during this presentation. Obviously, the generals were there in person. This was televised. But this could have been done sort of through a memo. It could have sort of just been enacted. But the president and Secretary Hegseth did decide in this strategy. Do you think this is part of a strategy to echo just his message in general when it comes to DEI, to echo their messages on wokeism in general? Or is it a foreign audience? Are they trying to show that, hey, the U.S. has a focus on strength, on sort of merit? Or how do you kind of sort of see how do you analyze this event?
I think I think that the target audience was much broader than the generals themselves. Otherwise, they would have done a memo, and that would be it. I think that they wanted to send a message to the nation in general. Um, and even though I understand like why they decided to do this, and I think that a huge part of the population that decided to vote for Trump did it because they were really worried about this the cultural issues, the cultural shift that they were seeing in society. So I do understand that these are really relevant issues that we need to discuss. I think that a lot of, especially when you see that Trump got so many votes among suburban moms and mothers in general. I think a key point there, aside from the economy and safety, had to do with a reaction against this woke culture. So I understand why they decided to do that. That being said, I'm a pragmatic. I'm someone who likes action. So I agree that this might not have been the most efficient thing to do, and that I would prefer to see changes in a pragmatic way, in a tangible way, more than in PR stunts.
Yeah, very much so. Because I do think there was a little bit of that sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say the stunt, but there was a PR element to the entire sort of rollout of these new rules. Well, I do want to thank our audience for tuning in. I do want to thank Marco coming in from Washington, D.C. Thank you for your time. Soledad here in studio. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you again to the audience for tuning in. This is The Game, the show where we go play by play, analyzing the game of politics.